white parents. Okay, so what can white parents of school-age children do to help in this process of decolonizing the music room? So this question has several parts. So what can the white parents do with school-age children? Parents who have white parents who have college-age children, what
Mhm.
can they do? And their children, right? Because they're old enough at that age to kind of get active and speak out. And
Yeah.
kind of like, what's your experience and how this dynamic plays out differently in private schools versus public schools?
Yeah. So I can speak only the teeniest tiniest bit to private schools because I haven't taught in one.
Okay.
I only know a few friends who teach in them. I've had some instructors who have taught in them, but just to say that, I don't want to speak as if I have total authority
Right. Right.
to speak on that. Something that I think would be handy for white parents of school age children to remember is racially minoritized children don't get to choose when they're exposed to these issues. They don't have an option. So, like I've had a friend who's like, our kids are the same age and maybe they're second grade, right? And the friend's like, when should I start talking to them? I'm like 5 years ago. Because like my children, their experiences may not all be the most negative experiences, right? But their blackness, they're very well aware of, and the othering that comes with that, they're very well aware of. Um, and white parents of school age children need to be talking to their children about these
Mm.
things as early as they can. And the type of representation I try to have for my own children in media, television, movies, books, all of that. White parents should strive for that same level of representation. Understand that if they're looking around and there are only white people in their lives, that there's something going on with that, unless you were like in a town where, the population of non-white people is so incredibly low.
Right.
It
Right.
makes sense. But, we can find our largest cities and find white people who don't have people in any of their circles who are not white.
Right.
So, they can't be brought in to be teaching pieces. You
Right.
just, need to evaluate your circles because what will happen is this idea that we keep perpetuating that we really shouldn't talk about race and that to treat people equally means ignoring it completely. Sometimes we say that. We hear teachers say, I'm colorblind, which is a whole mess.
Yeah.
Or then we implicitly say, like we have to be nice to everybody. We can't point out that anybody's different at all, right?
Right.
But then we can point out all these other different. We can say you're short and tall, your hair is red or blonde or whatever, but we can't talk about your skin.
Right.
And there's, an issue behind that. So you don't have only your racially minoritized students going to school having any kind of facility to even process these differences of what they mean. And not just talking about them existing, but like the power dynamics that exist in those differences and, what that might mean. Um, it can be really lonely for a child to have to confront these things and know that they are surrounded by peers who never have to give it a thought. And it's a privilege to never have to give it a thought. And parents don't have to traumatize their children in order to introduce these concepts to them
Right.
and introduce the importance of dealing with race and understanding that there are things that are inequitable and unfair that need to be rectified.
Okay.
College, that's interesting. Let me think, because I've been a college kid. I have a first year college kid, but I haven't really thought that much about that. I think like as a former college student, parents can be continuing the conversation. Like we talked about when like racism, anti-racism is just kind of more in the zeitgeist. Like a lot of people were talking about being white and then going home and having a Thanksgiving dinner with racist uncle whoever and all these discussions and stuff. That's kind of the space you have when you're dealing with a college kid, unless they
Yeah.
live at home.
Yeah.
And so, that continuation of the attitude when they're younger is going to carry through. When I talk about blackness and stuff with my kids, or I talk about racial minoritization or whatever culture, it's not you know, it's not like the lesson plan where it's like in at 4:05 we talk about this.
Right.
There's a level of integration into our speech and the way I try to help my kids look at the world and look for things and look where things show up and where things are missing that frames our regular dialogue.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not like after school special time. It's
Right.
just how we talk about things. And then, of course, you know, like calling out things when you see foolishness or when someone else says it.
Right.
Um, and, you know, when your college kid comes home or you know, even if your college kid lives with you and they're just out and about, but, you know, you guys have your conversations when you can. There's so much that can have an impact even when they seem to have a complete other life. I noticed after college, there are so many things that have kicked in about my parents' attitudes to things, things that I've been very grateful that they instilled, but I paid absolutely no attention to at the time. You would have had no idea I was listening.
Right. Right.
So just keeping that in mind.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. And I would add my own little nugget here in terms of parents and especially private schools and public schools. I mean, I think that it's important for parents to hold teachers and administrators accountable
Uh-huh.
for what is being taught in their schools. So, you know, that means just being very active in the parent groups and communicating with administration about what you want to see and if there are things that are missing that you want to see. But I would also say it seems, in my opinion, in my experience, private schools, parents have a lot more kind of leeway,
Like sway over. Yeah.
especially if they're kind of big donors to things, right?
Yeah.
Like people will bend over backward for you if you're a big donor to the school.
Yeah.
So I would say that, you know, white parents should leverage their position as much as possible for the sake
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
creating more anti-racist content and teaching methods in their children's school because, you know, like you said, you can do as much at home, but there's going to be damage done if they then go to school and are taught all these negative things.
For 8 hours a day. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that leveraging is really important. But even beyond that, it's like use the weight to make the space and then like back up so someone who is representative of the lived experience can be in the space. You know, don't tokenize the person, but it's like it's just, like you're saying white parents, and I'm thinking of the podcast Nice White Parents and
Yeah.
and you know the story of the school and parents coming in with all these intentions, but you know kind of crowding out and not really listening to the racially minoritized people and you know creating spaces and things that were happening that you know they it was just creating an issue of access too. So it's like, you know, understand that like if you're the big donor or the big influencer, your job is to just make the space and platform, not to be the figurehead of it.
Right. Right.
And, you know, if there's someone who knows better, good. If it's a matter that your school is so predominantly white that it would be a harmful tokenization to try to put racially minoritized families or parents or staff in that position, you know, bring in somebody, hire somebody who's like this is their job and they have built up a certain boundary and a certain method of doing what they do
Okay.
to help supplement whatever that is and obviously make as much connections to the outside community as you can.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.